As you know, big tech is silencing any story about the Biden family's ties to China, specifically Hunter Biden's shady business dealings in the country. But this story is real, and one of the most prominent researchers on the issue of foreign influence has evidence. As a refresher before we get into the why of the matter, Peter Schweitzer has written a book that implicates not only Democrats but some Republicans of being in the pocket of China. This isn't partisan, but he points out just how bad it is with the Bidens in China. Here are some of the facts. In 2013, then Vice President Biden and his son Hunter flew aboard Air Force Two to China. 10 days later, Hunter Biden's firm scored a $1.5 billion deal with a subsidiary of the Chinese government's Bank of China. Then in April of 2017, BHR paid $1.2 billion for 24% of a mining operation based in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So why does any of this matter? Because China is working to secure natural resources, so China's global production share may be reserved for Chinese manufacturers. With me now to discuss how this could affect us here in the U.S. is Tipping Point producer Chris Boyle.
Thanks, Kara. This is a story that needs a lot more attention. People are already using more batteries, and new leftist green energy mandates are only going to put more pressure on that market. As it stands, China is controlling a startling amount of the rare earth metals needed to make those batteries. This could put us in a situation similar to the one that we faced against OPEC during the U.S. oil embargo, except now instead of dealing with an organization made up of various nations with competing interests, the United States could be forced to make terms with a single communist behemoth. Take a look. Majority of modern tasks depend upon our ability to effectively store electricity on batteries. With the increasing popularity of electric cars and solar-powered homes, as well as our increased technological needs, the U.S. dependence on battery power has never been more real, and this need is only increasing. Though domestic mines have ramped up in places like Missouri and Idaho, as of 2017, 72% of the U.S. consumption of cobalt, a critical component of most modern batteries, came from foreign sources. But this global supply is not available on a free market. Though the vast majority of the global supply of cobalt is deposited in the Congo region of Africa, China has laid stake to a surprising share of those deposits. As of 2016, China held influence over 14% of cobalt at its source. But China's influence over the cobalt supply chain does not end at mining. President and CEO of First Cobalt, Trent Mell, breaks down the problems that this has created for their own refinery.
We're faced with the reality that there is no significant cobalt mining in North America today. It's coming, including our own asset in Idaho, which is looking to be very prospective. But we've got an asset, it's ready to go, it's in fabulous condition, but the feedstock was the issue. And so when you look at the global supply chain today, about 70% of global mined cobalt is coming out of the DRC, and most of that then goes to China, which then controls about 80% of the cobalt sulfate market, and that's the chemical form of cobalt that you put into electric vehicle batteries.
China's ownership of cobalt refiners means that China controls roughly half of the world's supply of cobalt, and experts believe that much of this supply will remain off the market, reserved for Chinese manufacturing needs. Dave Wilcox of Central America Nickel joined One American News reporter Caitlin Sinclair in October of 2019 to highlight China's strategy.
China had a strategy for decades in this space, and it's been shown in time and time again where they've taken over 14 of the 35 critical rare earths, which have been identified by the White House.
So besides low labor costs and lax environmental regulations, what exactly was China's strategy?
Their strategy was to take over a number of these rare earths in the way that they're key dependencies for us in the way of cell phones or communication devices.
This, as the United States' own strategic stockpile of cobalt has dropped dramatically in recent decades. The Trump administration had made moves to use the Defense Production Act to target the U.S. cobalt supply as it relates to the production of samarium cobalt rare earth permanent magnets, which play a role in the function of guided missiles. The functionality and competitiveness of the U.S. guided missile program is a major national security concern. But there are doubts about a possible Biden administration's willingness to stand up for American interests in the face of pressure from China. This is in part because of Joe Biden's son's own connection to China's interest in cobalt. In 2013, Hunter Biden hitched a now infamous ride on Air Force Two to China. There, he reportedly sealed a $1.5 billion deal on behalf of his firm with a subsidiary of the Chinese government's Bank of China, an investment fund called Boyle Harvest RST. In April 2017, Boyle Harvest RST paid $1.2 billion for 24% of Tenke Fungurume Mining, one of the largest cobalt producers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Cobalt mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo are documented as being rife with human rights abuse and have been the center of conflict ending in bloodshed. 10K Fungurume Mining in particular was called out by Amnesty International in July of 2017 for its use of Democratic Republic of Congo troops against local artisanal miners. This could be a very real conflict of interest for Joe Biden. And this is all set against the backdrop of plans of a future renewal of economic agreements between the People's Republic of China and African nations. The Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, the official forum between the People's Republic of China and all but one of the countries in Africa, is set to meet in September of 2021. The summit is set to expand China's influence on the African continent. These talks are happening despite polling that shows people across Africa would prefer an economic relationship based on freedom with the United States, rather than the strict control of Communist China. Electric car manufacturers have already begun to face the tightening cobalt supply, as have medical equipment suppliers. This, coupled with incoming government mandates that ban the sale of gas-powered cars in places like California, could spell trouble for American consumers. Domestic mining operations seeking to tap into the Duluth complex, one of the largest undeveloped mineral deposits in the world, face potential stymies under the Obama-Biden administration. Now, once again, the future of domestic mining looks uncertain. This will leave the U.S. dependent on a foreign supply of rare earth metals that has been monopolized under firms controlled by China. Unless action is taken, the tightening of the global supply of cobalt could have real, tangible impacts on the American consumer and on U.S. national security.